Hey guys, welcome to our series on revival. This is part one. My name is Billy. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to tell you a quick story. My wife and my three girls and I just finished watching a movie called Ragamuffin. It's about the life of Rich Mullins. He's a singer-songwriter, unfortunately no longer with us, but but he wrote popular songs like "Awesome God," "Sing Your Praise to the Lord," "Elijah." This is back in the I think 80s and early 90s. And he's got a lot of other songs that were really powerful. Look up actually his CD entitled "Songs," and that's I think most of his greatest hits. And he had a really tough life. He had and a lot of that was because he brought it on himself. He had a lot of quote unquote demons that he dealt with. Challenges, particularly kind of growing out of the relationship that he had with his dad growing up. He could never kind of live up to his dad's expectations. His dad was a farmer, and Rich played the piano. And his dad would say to people, "I've got two sons, I've got two daughters, and a piano player." And so Rich was his third son, and I think his oldest. But anyway, his dad didn't know how to relate to him, and his dad did love him, and his dad and his mom took the family to church, and his dad wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He just didn't know how to say "I love you." He just didn't know how to give a hug. He didn't know how to accept or interact with people different from him, including his own son, and that really hurt Rich. And we all have a choice of how we react to that. But the long story short is, Rich dealt with a lot of alcoholism. He smoked. He more than that though. Really, he struggled in his heart. I mean, it was a life struggle in his spirit and his heart, just wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be valued. And he came across a preacher named Brennan Manning. You might have heard of his book, The Ragamuffin Gospel. But Brennan Manning really taught Rich that God loves him. God loved him no matter what. And Brennan told him the most important question that God will ask when we get to heaven is, did you believe when you were on earth? Did you believe that I loved you? Did you believe that I loved you? And if we believe that God is real, if we believe that God, the creator of the universe, the maker of heaven and earth, the one who says he'll provide for our every need, the one who is certainly capable of providing for every need, the only one that we need to kind of give us a stamp of approval in this life, if we believe he loves us and he values us and we're his creation and he's proud of his creation and that we're fully accepted by him, then we can walk in complete freedom, which is something they talked about, Brennan and Rich talked about in the movie, being free. We can not only walk in complete freedom, we walk in a fulfillment of our need to be satisfied, of our longing to be loved, of our inner need to be fulfilled. We will be fulfilled. It's like Jesus said to the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well, I have springs of living water, that will never run dry and will always fill you up. And, that's what Rich was searching for his whole life. And that's what a lot of his most powerful songs came out of, this brokenness, different broken relationships where he just always felt rejected and abandoned. But the truth is that he could only find that true satisfaction and that hope and that love in God. I start with that story, and we're going to transition somehow to the book of Nehemiah and the story of Nehemiah today. We're going to highlight Nehemiah out of the Bible when we talk about revival today. Because we're going to say that revival today we're going to say it's hard work. And in part one of our series, we're going to say revival is hard work. Now, I'm not saying we can conjure up revival. I'm not saying if we work harder, revival comes. What I'm saying is revival is the presence of God coming into your life, into a place, coming into a being, like into me, into you, into many, many people, if you want it to spread. And the presence of God fills us till we're so full and satisfied, we can't imagine ever being hungry again. And yet we're still hungry because it's so good. We keep wanting more. God is the only thing that we can taste and see, because he says taste and see that he is good, that we can taste of and that we can see and be filled with him and yet still be hungry. So revival comes when the presence comes, and the presence only comes as we get rid of us and there's space for him. The presence only comes in brokenness. I'm not saying we always have to be broken, but I'm saying that's part of the process, okay? The things that get in the way, the reasons we won't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to spend 2 or 3 hours with God, the reasons why we'll watch TV at night instead of, ending our day with 2 hours with God, 9 to 11 or 8 to 10, right, with God. The reasons why we won't spend 4 hours, on a Saturday afternoon on our knees or lying on our bed, hands open up, worship music on our headphones, just soaking in God, not asking Him for anything, just soaking in God, just enjoying God. Those things have to go away. It says right here in chapter 1 of Nehemiah in verse 3, I think, 4. So Nehemiah is in Persia. He's one of the exiles, or he's the great-grandchild of an exile when the Babylonians came and took the people out of Jerusalem. It says in chapter 1, verse 4, that he had heard that the people had rebuilt the temple, because it had been prophesied through Daniel. They rebuilt the temple, but they had not rebuilt the walls, and they weren't safe. And it says, when I heard this, Nehemiah says, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. Now, how many of you know, raise your hand, that when you, for days, when you don't eat a thing, when you fast, when you mourn and cry for days, and when you pray for days, you got to be broken in a special way. It is hard work. Now, it's not hard work in the sense that you're broken enough that God has given the grace. It's all from God. It's not your hard work. It's His hard work through you, but it is a breaking. It is hard work. If you watched the movie Ragamuffin, Rich Mullins went through hard work to experience revival in his life, okay? It's hard work because we're not in heaven yet. Now, heaven is coming down, and we're calling for heaven to come down. And when we become saints in Christ and sons of God, then there's an open heaven above us. And Jesus prayed, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But He still separated earth and heaven and asked for heaven to come down. The point is, it's hard work. The point is that in Nehemiah, as he rebuilt the walls, there was opposition. There was mocking. There was laughter. There was threats of attack. There was ambushes set up. And Nehemiah had to stay focused. And he has the famous verse in chapter 6, I believe it's 6:13 or 14, where he says, I am doing too important of a work. I cannot come down. I cannot come meet with you naysayers. I cannot come with you people who would like to make me feel less and small and not valuable and not loved by God, because I am here in what God has called me to. And no matter whether or not it looks impossible to you or impossible to others, I know what God has called me to, and I will walk in it. If you read the book of Nehemiah, and I challenge you to do that and maybe watch on Netflix the movie Ragamuffin about Rich Mullins' life. But if you read the book of Nehemiah, you'll read a book of someone who had to stand up to the rich people in their community, the Jewish rich people, and say, stop charging interest to your poor family members, because they're having to sell off their children just to eat because they owe you so much interest in what they borrowed from you to keep their family alive. We're all in this together. He had to do many different things that did not make him popular. He had to do many things that did not make him rich. He gave up the salary he was rightfully his to do the right thing. Revival is hard work, but revival came. If you read Ezra the prophet reads the words of God, and revival comes, and there's cleansing, and it all happens because Nehemiah is faithful, and he does the hard work, and he does the unpopular things at times, and he risked his life to ask the king of Persia to give him supplies and to give him leave. He takes risks. And you must take risks for the presence of God to come in a place and to come in your life and cause revival. So part one of this series is that it takes hard work, is that it requires risk, and that it requires you to give up things that might even rightfully be yours, but you give them up for the betterment of the atmosphere, of the culture, of the community, of revival, of the call and the cry corporately out to God to come in all His power and all His love and all His might and all His goodness and mercy. that you give up things, you sacrifice, and you stay dedicated no matter what the naysayers say, that's when revival comes. Look forward to talking to you again in part 2.